Ever wonder how humanity transformed from scattered bands of hunter-gatherers into the architects of massive global empires? It's an absolutely epic journey. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into roughly 5,000 years of human history. Beginning with the very first written words and ending with the expansion of new global religions in late antiquity, our ancestors literally laid the foundations for the modern world. Let's get into it.
The momentum of this era was just explosive. To put things into perspective, back in 10,000 BC, the entire global population stood at an estimated 2 million people. But as the Neolithic Revolution kicked into gear and intensive agriculture really took hold, that number skyrocketed to 45 million by 3000 BC. And by the end of the ancient period, around 8500, we're looking at 209 million people. That is a 100 times population growth. It absolutely sets the high stakes for the era where human beings truly conquered the globe.
To make sense of over 5,000 years of global progress, we've broken this explainer into 5 quick chapters: Dawn of the Ancient World, the Power of Writing, Cradles of Civilization, the Mystery of the Indus Valley, and finally, the Age of Empires.
All right, Chapter 1, Dawn of the Ancient World. Let's set the stage for civilization.
So, there is a stark, absolutely crucial contrast between prehistory and history. Prehistory is that vast, sprawling period where everything we know relies entirely on dug-up artifacts, old tools, and fossils. History itself officially begins with a massive technological leap, the invention of writing, roughly 5,000 years ago, starting with Sumerian cuneiform. Suddenly, and this is a real game changer, humanity could directly record its own thoughts, its laws, and its daily administration to pass down to the next generation. But, before we could write, we actually had to settle down. Around 9000 BC, agriculture starts sprouting up in the Fertile Crescent. And this kicks off a really rapid succession of shared leaps. By 6000 BC, humans are smelting copper. By 3500 BC, we see the creation of bronze alloys in Mesopotamia, which meant way stronger tools and weapons. And then by 3000 BC, the pottery wheel gets adapted into wheeled vehicles. That completely revolutionized transportation and trade. This incredible progress laid the physical foundation for the very first cities.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, the Power of Writing. Seriously, humanity's ultimate leap forward.
Now you might think writing was just a lucky fluke that happened once and slowly spread. But actually, no way. Astonishingly, it was invented completely independently in at least 5 completely different spots around the globe. From cuneiform in Mesopotamia, to hieroglyphs in Egypt, the Indus script in India, oracle bones in China, and the Zapotec script down in Mesoamerica. It seems like whenever a society grew large enough, human ingenuity just invariably figured out a way to record its data.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, Cradles of Civilization. Let's see where humanity actually decided to settle down and build.
All across the world, independent cultures started using their leftover crops, their agricultural surpluses, to stop migrating and start building. While the Near East was busy forming the very first centralized governments and law codes, Egypt was leveraging the Nile River to organize massive collective projects, like the pyramids. Meanwhile, the Olmec were building these incredible stone ceremonial centers and early calendars in the Americas. And over in China, the Shang dynasty was mastering bronze casting for chariots and constructing highly sophisticated city walls. Basically, surplus meant specialization, and specialization forged civilizations.
Okay, Chapter 4, Mystery of the Indus Valley. We're zooming in on a real Bronze Age enigma now.
With all these massive leaps happening, we gotta ask ourselves, how on earth did ancient people manage these sprawling, complex urban centers without a shred of modern technology? How do you keep track of thousands of people, tons of goods, and long-distance trade routes using nothing but Bronze Age tools?
Well, a perfect answer lies in the Indus Valley Civilization, which is also known as the Harappan Civilization. It's one of the big 3 early civilizations, right alongside Mesopotamia and Egypt. It existed from roughly 3300 to 1300 BC and featured these incredibly organized cities spread across what is now modern-day Pakistan and Western India. These folks were incredibly connected. They were trading jewelry and goods as far away as Mesopotamia. And to keep those shipments secure on such long journeys, they engineered what is basically an ancient tamper-proof lock. They'd stamp wet clay with specialized carved seals right over the knots of their transport sacks. Now, even though their ruins were first noted way back in an 1842 book by Charles Mawson, the sheer scale of their administrative genius wasn't truly unearthed until archaeologist John Marshall started officially excavating in 1921 and 1922.
But then, the story takes a super dramatic turn. Despite all this, their advanced society, organized streets, and vast trade networks, around 1600 BC, this thriving culture suddenly vanished. They simply abandoned many of their great cities, including Mohenjo-Daro. And the craziest part? The reasons remain entirely unknown to archaeologists today.
And that brings us to the ultimate puzzle. Remember earlier when we talked about the immense power of writing? Well, the Indus Valley script remains almost entirely undeciphered today. We literally cannot read it. And because we can't crack their unique writing system, the exact structure of their society, how they govern themselves, and the true cause of their sudden collapse remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Their ancient secrets are literally locked away in a code we just haven't cracked yet.
All right, Chapter 5, The Age of Empires. Let's look at the grand consolidation of power.
Over the centuries, those early, localized city-states got swallowed up by massive, highly organized empires. You had Rome fighting bitter wars to conquer Carthage and eventually rule the entire Mediterranean, right up until it fell in AD 476. Over in Asia, the Han Dynasty united China, invented paper, and drove massive agricultural surpluses. In India, the Maurya Empire hit its peak under Ashoka, sending Buddhist missionaries all the way to Sri Lanka. And the Maya reached their classical period around AD 300, developing vast astronomical knowledge and the mathematical concept of zero. By the end of this ancient era, these massive empires had completely forged the cultural, religious, and administrative foundations of the modern world.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, just look at what was accomplished. In a mere 5,000 years of recorded history, humanity went from scattered tribes just figuring out how to plant seeds to the architects of massive, continent-spanning global empires. And we achieved all of this independently, inventing writing, the wheel, and metallurgy completely from scratch. It really makes you wonder, considering the incredible heights our ancestors reached with nothing but bronze and stone, what does the boundless future hold for human ingenuity over the next 5,000 years?